Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us today for the Pathways to Open Source webinar series. This is the final session of our Pathways to Open Source sessions, and we'll be focusing on Koha's electronic resource management tool today. I'm joined by Kelly McGilligot and Adam Brooks. They'll be monitoring chat as we go throughout the session today, so if you have questions, please let us know. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, our Pathways to Open Source series covers how Koha works for your library. Today, we'll be focusing solely on the eResource side of things, where we dive into what Koha has to offer as far as electronic resource management and how that ties into your Koha system. If you're a Koha user, you'll see some of this functionality and how it's grown over the last few releases. And as always, if you'd like a more in-depth demo of how Koha can work for your library, we'll be having those contact details set aside at the end of this session. So first, we'll start with Koha's ERM. So what is an ERM for those of you who might be using it just for the first time? It is a tool that is designed to allow your staff to be able to manage all of their electronic resources and online subscriptions. So this can encompass a lot of your collection. These days, we're transitioning out of a lot of print for maybe magazines or subscriptions that we've had into more of the electronic material. What Koha's ERM allows you to do is maintain and manage all of those electronic journals, any ebooks, databases, or subscriptions that you may have. Koha first released the ERM module in the 2211 release. That would be November of 22. This included a brand new module that can be enabled within the system. So for libraries that are first checking it out, you can turn this on. For libraries that may not need it, you can leave it disabled, and that will not show the module within the system. The first release included an agreements module, which allows staff to manage subscriptions and access. This is where you'll go to keep track of the renewal periods and any information that pertains to accessing those materials within the system. The second feature you'll see is licensing. This is where staff can keep track of contracts or terms of use within the system. This can also be connected to staff members who keep track of these license agreements within the system. And you can also upload multiple licenses within the system. Finally, there is an eHoldings module, and that allows you to track local resources for titles and/or packages. And this can be done in two ways. You can, one, connect it to your EBSCO platform if you have a Holdings IQ subscription with EBSCO. The second way would be to connect all of these local holdings within the system. And we'll show you that shortly. So what we'll do now is we're going to dive into the Koha system, and we are going to run through just what this looks like. So the first thing you'll see is when we're looking at our staff interface in Koha, we now have a new module that's enabled at the bottom of the screen. There you'll see the eResource management module. Now, the nice thing about Koha's flexibility is that a lot of the modules and features within Koha can be turned on and off. So if we quickly navigate over to Koha's administration module, we'll talk just a little bit about how Koha has been designed to allow this flexibility. The first thing we'll look at is our system preferences. System preferences in Koha allow you to essentially turn things on and off, decide when things are used, and how things run. With the addition of the ERM came a new system preference within the eResource management tab. This will show you 4 system preferences. The first is which enables and disables the platform. So this will turn it on. The next 3 will enable you to connect to EBSCO if you have a subscription within the system. And then the last will be to set up your providers in the system if you are connected to them. Now let's jump back over to our main interface. First, we'll talk a little bit about vendor management. For those of you that may have used Koha in the past or are currently using Koha, the acquisitions module allows you to maintain your fiscal year spending, management of your vendors, and of course, ordering and receiving. Within the vendor module, you can now connect to your ERM. So we'll come down here and we'll take a look at one of our vendors. We'll take a look at ProQuest. In our ProQuest vendor, we can keep track of details, company information, details about address, phone, website, and account information. On the right-hand side, you're going to see contact information. This is where we can keep track of maybe a customer service rep or a sales rep, or maybe you have someone for collection development. In the center of the screen, you'll also see ordering information. This is how Koha keeps track of when a vendor is active, what type of discounts or tax that you pay, and active delivery times. With the addition of the ERM, we now have a new section called Interfaces. This allows us to keep track of any type of portals or platforms that you use to access these electronic resources or subscriptions or placing for ordering. So if we come over here and we edit our vendor, the first thing we'll see here is our contact information and such. And then we'll come down and we'll see our interfaces. Now, Koha can keep track of information. Where are we going to access our administration or place orders or run statistics or reports for the ERM or any of those databases or subscriptions that we have access to? You can now maintain all of that information, keeping track of passwords, login credential, and any type of notes within the system. You can also add in multiple interfaces. So if you do have more than one, let's say to log in for your supportal or to track or ask questions or tickets within the system, someplace to run statistics, or maybe you have a platform to order e-content or electronic titles in the system, you can enter in that information. As always, Koha allows for flexibility when you're driving these drop-down menus within the system. That can all be configured through Koha's authorized values. So by default, we'll see 3 options in here for administration, orders, and reports, but you can always add or rename those entries within the system. Now let's jump into the eResource management module itself. Within the eResource management module, at the top of the screen, you'll see a search bar. That will allow us to search through each section of the ERM. And this will come in extremely handy when you're either looking to find a quick agreement or license or title within your collection. You'll notice just as the rest of Koha allows, you can search for each one of those within the system. So again, if you have anywhere up to 300-400 agreements or licenses within the system, this will quickly allow you to jump in and find those. Now let's start with agreements first. Remember, agreements are what essentially describe what electronic subscriptions you can access. So if we stick with ProQuest today as our example, we'll come in here and we'll look at our first agreement that we have within the system. So if we click on that, that'll take us in where we can see the agreement within the system. Again, this is going to track things like, is this agreement active? When is its renewal? How long does this agreement run for? And you can connect it to an actual user within the system. So if we come in here and edit this, you'll see that there are a few required fields. One, of course, is going to be that agreement name, And then the next, of course, is going to be that status. Your vendor dropdown will pull from the active vendors that you have listed in your acquisitions module. This way, you can connect those two to each other to easily access which vendors are managing those agreements. Descriptions allow you a free text box to bring any additional information that would be relevant for other staff members to keep track of for that agreement. Now, under status, you'll see 3 options in the dropdown: one for active, one for closed, and one for in negotiation. And remember, as always, whenever you see a dropdown menu, those are controlled through Koha's authorized values, so it gives you that flexibility to rename or repurpose those dropdowns. If a particular status was marked closed, that would then open up your option for a closure reason. So then you could say either it was canceled or it was expired. Some people like to use this to track and keep additional notes on if you're in an academic library and you purchase something for a department or a faculty member or a professor, you can tell why this particular item was canceled. Then you'll see a little bit more information on renewal options, and then of course, any license information. The next section you'll see is the periods. This is where you can track the active times for your agreement within the system. So you can see here we have our start and end date and the term that's in our agreement for when it needs to be canceled by in order to meet those deadlines. For those of you that work with contracts or negotiate, you all know that usually there's a term within your clause that tells you you have to set a cancellation, 60 days, 90 days within that. And Koha gives you a nice way to be able to do that. You can see here we kept a little note that says 60-day cancellation period. Now, as we can see, this is coming up to an end. We can add our new period in, which would allow us to signify if it has been renewed within the system, and we can set those dates. The next thing we'll see here is our users. This actively allows us to connect to users within the system. So right here, you'll see a few that we have: accounting, an ERM librarian, a subject specialist. If you're a special library, we have some examples in here for an attorney or a paralegal. Lots of times you'll see with proprietary systems or databases or subscriptions, you have a set amount of users that can be set dependent on what your agreement is or your license. And so this would allow you to track information there as well. In Koha's module for licenses, we can also connect the license directly to the agreement. So again, it makes it very easy for staff to see the agreement and then connect it to that license within the system. You'll also notice there's another option here for related agreements. This would allow you to connect to any other agreement that's in the system. For those of you that may be a part of a consortium or a larger system where you share titles, you can connect multiple agreements and have those relationships set within the system. Finally, the last thing you'll see down below is a Documents tab, and that will allow you to upload any type of document related to this agreement, whether it's the agreement itself, whether it's an email chain or negotiations that have gone back and forth. Anything that is related to that agreement can be uploaded in this Documents tab. Once your agreements have been created, you can search within each column. You can search within the entire table. And then you can also run reports to say, show me anything that is expired by a particular date. You'll also notice in one of our current releases, you now also have an option to say, show only the agreements that are connected to me as an individual. So again, if you have a large system and you want to just go in and see the agreements that are connected to you as a staff member, you can select that option and filter, and then it will narrow down to those particular agreements. The next thing we'll take a look at is licenses. Now, licenses is where you're going to keep track of any of the contracts or terms of use for the content you have subscribed to. So again, we'll stick with ProQuest here, and we'll look at the license that we have set up. This allows you to essentially come in and track the type of license it is. Again, those start and end dates. You can connect it to users and then, of course, upload those licenses within the system. It will connect to your vendors within the acquisitions module, and you'll see that you have 4 required fields here under creation of that license: the name, the description, the type, and the status. As we scroll down a little bit further, you'll be able to connect users to the license itself. So again, these will show you that same drop-down that we saw within agreements, and these can be customized in your authorized values. You can also add multiple users to this user section. Some of the questions that we've heard from libraries when using an ERM is, maybe I want to give access to just our accounting department so they can come in and see that information or access those documents within the system. Again, you can create those individual users to have access to these within the system. Finally, down below, you'll see documents. This is where you're going to keep track of those licenses, where you can upload them into the system. You can add multiple documents, and then you can keep any type of notes about that particular license within the system. As with our agreements module, you'll be able to search within each one of those columns and within the table itself. So if you're looking for something in particular, you'll be able to access that information. Now, let's talk a little bit about our eHoldings module. Again, with our eHoldings, this is allowing us to track local resources and titles, packages that are within your system or essentially connected to EBSCO. So the first ones we're going to talk about would be local packages. Now, this is going to be any vendor that you have a relationship that you want to track in the electronic resource module. So whether it's Hoopla or Overdrive or ProQuest or any other entity that you have, this is where you're going to track that information. With EBSCO, you do have to pay for a subscription to EBSCO's Holdings IQ module. So if you have access to that, you would connect to the EBSCO API, which we'll show you in just a second. If you don't have access to that Holdings IQ through EBSCO, you can also just enter your titles within packages and titles within the local section. So for any local eHoldings, these are electronic resources from other vendors that have a bibliographic record in Koha and are searchable in the Koha catalog. So this is a nice feature that I know libraries have been waiting for a long time, because we could track all of those print centric resources through acquisitions and through the Koha system. Now this gives you the opportunity to bring in and track those electronic resources as well. So if we come in here and we take a look at, we'll look at our ancestry entry for this first one. This will show us the package. So the package consists of our ancestry library. It's showing us any type of information about that package. You can see the agreement that it's connected to. And then down below, we can see each one of those titles within the package. Now, if we come in here and we look at this particular record for packages, this is again just going to show us some options where again we can connect to the vendor, set the type that it is, enter in the content type and any type of notes. You'll see here that we do have it connected to our agreement, so we can jump back and forth and easily see that information. If we come over to our titles, this will show us information for those local packages. So local titles will allow us to view that information within the system. We can see title level information, author information. And if we come in here and edit this, this will just show you all of the fields that you can enter and track information. going all the way back to serial information, issues that are available, how far those issues go back, the coverage, the publication type, and then down below you can see the package that it is connected to. Now, there are multiple ways that you can bring this data into the Koha system. When you're creating a new package, you can bring in files from a list of MARC records. You can create them manually within the system. And we do have electronic resource management documentation available on our website if you're interested in setting that information up. When you're adding titles in bulk, this quickly allows you to bring that information in. So let's say we have about 700 titles that we just purchased from a vendor. That would allow you to bring those in a quick manner. Now let's talk about EBSCO. So again, just stressing with EBSCO, you do need a connection to EBSCO's Holdings IQ subscription. That allows you to connect your API information directly within the Koha system. The API connection works both ways between your Koha system and EBSCO. So any type of changes that are made in your EBSCO system will be reflected in Koha to make it quick and easy within the system. So again, our database here that we're showing you within Koha is connected to an EBSCO system, so you can see what that looks like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a search for a package name, and we're just going to search for security. What this is doing a real-time look at our EBSCO system and bringing those titles in. So I can see the package, the type, the vendor, and any of that content. If we click on it, it will give us a complete breakdown of information where we can see those titles that are connected. It will give you an option to add that package to your holdings within the Koha system. And then you can also add the agreement directly to it. That way you can keep track of all of this information in one spot. Now, if we come back here again, I'm going to do a second search. And this will show you what it looks like if we have added a title in there. So in this case, we've done a search for psychology. And as I'm scrolling down, you'll see we have a button over here which shows us a check marks that's selected. So if we come in here and we look at Credo Psychology Essentials, this is going to give us a breakdown of the collection that it's in. So you can see right here under agreements that this has been connected to our psychology collection agreement. So I can keep track of all of that information. And then down below, I can see all of those titles. So for example, if we click on the Handbook of the Psychology of Aging, this will give us just a quick snapshot where I can see the print and the online ISBN. I can see what package it's a part of. I can see the title and just get a little more information about that within the system. So again, now I can keep track of not only the packages, but the titles also that we have available through EBSCO. So that is a quick overview of what Koha's ERM has within the system. Again, this is allowing us to keep track of those subscriptions that we have, licensing, and any of our eHoldings within the system. So now we're going to talk a little bit about what's coming next. So the Koha community is actively working on the next set of enhancements that will be developed for Koha's ERM. So in the 2311 release that just came out about a week and a half ago, that's the November 2023 release of Koha, a usage statistics module has been introduced. That will now be available in Koha's ERM, and that will allow libraries to connect directly to their vendors via a sushi connection, which allows you to automate the reports coming directly into your Koha system so you can see the usage of those titles and packages within the system. For any of your vendors that are not sushi compliant, you will have the option to automatically upload any Counter 5 reports. So this will be a great feature that you'll be able to, again, keep track of the usage statistics within your system and be able to analyze that use. The Koha community is also working on a cost per use report, which would allow you to analyze the cost per title or package and how it's being utilized within your system. Future developments will also include connections to acquisitions, so you can keep track of what you're spending for these electronic resources, and also a workflows or a task management module. If you want to keep track of, maybe you're analyzing a subscription, do you want to have access to a particular title or package? And, maybe going through several steps of, analyzing and testing to see if this package is worth the cost. The community is talking or in discussion about adding in a tasks module that will not only talk to the ERM, but also the cataloging module and circulation, and make it easier for librarians and staff to keep track of those tasks within the system. For any of you that are interested, our upcoming webinar series will be taking place and starting in January of 2024. And this sales session will focus on community connections. Kelly and or Adam will share the link if you want to sign up for any of those webinars. We're really looking forward to, just talking about how the open source communities work with Koha and all of the other products that we support here at Bywater Solutions. If you are interested in learning more about Koha or Koha ERM, Adam Brooks, who is our Koha sales consultant, would be happy to set up a personalized demo with you and go over all of the features that Koha has to offer for you. If you're interested in learning more about the ERM or how that can work for your library, Kelly and I have done a few presentations at Koha US that we can share with you, and we also have a link that we'll share to the Koha community Bugzilla site. That's where Koha tracks information about upcoming enhancements and releases, and that'll show you everything that is actively being suggested to the community and worked on with community members to just make that ERM robust and meet the needs of the Koha community. If there are any questions that we can answer or, set up a time to meet with us, please let us know. Otherwise, thanks for joining us for our open source pathways webinar series for today's Koha ERM. Thank you.